Hello, I'm Jim with Fire Barbecue, and today we're going to play with some flank steak and make some fajitas. So what we have today, flank steak, we're going to hit it with some Rave chili lime from Saskatoon, and we're going to cook it on a gateway. So let's get started. Let's start by talking about the meat, okay? This is a flank steak. Now you'll see there's not a whole lot of marbling. It's a really lean piece of meat, but if it's cooked right, it can be a very tender piece of meat. So how are we gonna cook this guy? We're gonna cook this guy hot, we're gonna cook it fast, we're gonna cook it to about 130 to 135 internal temperature to have it medium rare. So, I mean, there's a couple different ways that people talk about cooking this stuff. I'm not a fan of doing it low and slow. I'm a fan of hot and fast. I feel that the less marbling that's in a piece of meat, the faster you should cook it. And as far as this guy goes, that's what we're gonna do. So let's hit that with some chili lime and get going. All right, here is our flank steak, okay? So you'll notice it's a really lean piece of meat and it's fairly thin. Now when I have a thin, lean piece of meat, this actually goes for steaks and all kinds of stuff too. I don't like to cook it very slow. So I'm not gonna take and smoke this thing. I'm not gonna 225 it. I'm gonna put it right over a hot fire around 400 degrees, 500 degrees. I'm gonna cook it fast, I'm gonna sear it, and I'm gonna pull it at about 130 degrees when it's medium rare. If I ever cook this, it's just gonna get tough and chewy. So the important piece of the flank steak, don't overcook it, and cook it hot and cook it fast, and you'll have good, tasty, moist results every time. So we're gonna give it a good coat of rub. I don't do binders. If you do binders, that's fine. I'm not gonna fault anyone for doing it. I've always said that, you know, if you want to use that as part of your flavor profile, that's totally fine. But to make that stick, you don't really need it. It'll stick on its own. And when we let this sit here for about 5-10 minutes while that grill is getting up to temp, it's gonna suck that moisture out of that piece of meat and it's gonna adhere that rub to it anyways. So it's not that important. Okay, so I'm not gonna go over how to cut an onion because we all know how to cut an onion. But we are gonna take this pepper, and I'll show you how to cut a pepper. I just go around the core and it lays flat at the end. So it's really easy just to cut into some fingers, some pepper slivers there, and super easy to fry up and the perfect size for fajitas. Alright guys, here we go. You'll see I already got that cast iron frying pan going with our vegetables there. So pretty simple. I mean, we got a fire going, she's hot. I'm literally just dropping that flank steak down on there right beside the vegetables while they're frying up. That's gonna get going. Give this guy a little toss. Now something I didn't mention before with these veggies. So I cut up a couple peppers and some onions. We're gonna flavor that with the exact same stuff we use on the meat, or your choice. But for this, we're kind of going for that Tex-Mex. We want that chili and we want that lime. So I'm using the Rave chili lime on the pepper and the onions as well. So yeah, we're gonna put that guy on there. Now I'm gonna flip that when it's about 80, 90 degrees, and then I'm gonna leave it on the other side till it hits 130, and then I'm gonna pull it. We're gonna let that meat rest a good, well, probably 15 minutes anyways. And because it's not that thick, it doesn't need to rest that long, but probably at least 15 minutes while the rest of those peppers and onions finish up. And then we're gonna take and we're gonna fry up some tortilla shells just in a frying pan, load them up, and supper time. So stay tuned. The next time we're taking them off. All right, I think we're ready to go. I'm just gonna give these a little toss again. So you can see the peppers and onions are starting to cook up quite nicely. They'll be done by the time that meat rests. And the steak. Yeah, we're averaging about 135. So we're gonna take this off as well. Now you notice on that one side it looked a little juicy. There's a trick to that. with these dry cuts of meat, when you flip it over, it's a really cool idea to put a little butter on it. It just kind of makes it glisten a little bit. It also protects that meat from drying out. So it ensures that when you cut this up, she's going to be super tender and super juicy. So I'm going to pull it off right now and bring it in, and we're going to let that frying pan finish up with all those peppers, and then we'll carry on. Okay, one last step before we start carving up that flank steak. What we're gonna do is we're gonna fry these tortillas up a little bit. So, you know, a lot of people just take that tortilla right out of the bag and slap the meat and cheese on it and call it a day. But it totally will elevate your game if you cook this tortilla. These tortillas are made to be cooked before they're served. They really are. So when you put that tortilla in there, you're gonna see it starts to puff up. It starts to kind of loosen up a little bit. That's when you know you can flip it. And you'll see it's starting to it gets that little nice, beautiful browned kind of finish to it. This takes about 20 seconds of tortilla. So it's really not that big of a job. Super easy to do. And this is what makes that tortilla absolutely amazing when you serve it. So don't forget this step. I can't stress this enough. Cook those tortillas in a frying pan, preferably cast iron. It always works the best. Okay, one last thing I forgot that we had to make. We're gonna make a spicy lime sour cream. So we're gonna put just some chili flakes in there. Dash or two of pepper, nothing too crazy. Put some salt in there just for some flavor. I take one lime and just squeeze the whole thing in there. Doesn't have to be that much, that's enough. Give it a quick stir. You're ready to go. Now, one thing I will say about making these little flavored sour creams for this kind of stuff, it's actually better to make this way in advance. So if you make this a couple hours in advance, it'll actually absorb those flavors better, and it'll just be a lot more potent. Okay, here we are. So we have that beautiful flank steak that has Rave chili lime barbecue rub on it. It's gonna be wonderful. Now, one last note that I really wanna make with this guy is that if this is cut right, it's a wonderful tender piece of meat. If it's cut wrong, it's chewy and stringy and tough. You gotta cut against the grain. Always against the grain. And this one, it's very easy to tell. You'll actually see the lines running right through it. So just cut the opposite direction. Cut it nice and thin. And you'll see it's easy to pull apart. It's just a wonderful piece of meat. If I cut that too thick, it's gonna be really tough. And if I cut it this way, it's just gonna be super stringy and really hard to eat. But if I cut just nice, thin slices of this stuff, it's gonna make excellent tacos. You'll see the color. It's just a nice medium rare. Good to go. This guy turned out fantastic. It's got, you can smell the Tex-Mex flavors on here. You can smell that chili, you can smell that lime. Really well done rub. This is gonna be fantastic. I'll show you what it looks like when she's all plated. All right, so here we go. So there's that tortilla that we cooked just a little while ago. We're gonna take a couple pieces of meat on there. We're gonna give it a little swipe of that sour cream. Spread that meat open for appearance. We're gonna put on some of those peppers, some of those onions. Look at those. That's some pretty beautiful stuff there. Followed by some cheese. And voila, a beautiful steak fajita. So, like, subscribe. Hopefully you get something out of this. Super easy weekday cook. Doesn't take long. I think this was a total of about 45 minutes start to finish. So as quick as you can light that grill, you can have this puppy cooked. So fire that grill up and get grilling some fajitas. Thank you so much for watching.